I mean, you weren't dealing with the worst, you were dealing with literally the top of the crop. With a major firm, not a little investment advisory firm in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, managing, you know, I don't know, $10 million, $20 million, $100 million, massive firms.
Yeah, but that major firm was a one-man operation with family members in the board, and whatever board of directors they had, I don't know what their organization was, as opposed to, you know, whether Merrill Lynch or whoever it may be, you know, you're talking about, no, they're not one-man firms. They have boards of directors from representatives from all sorts of industries. I mean, there's a little bit of difference, not a lot.
You didn't know that. You didn't know that. What you were advertised with was,
today.
You were advertised with the thing that promoted Bernard Madoff Investment Securities, the BLMIS, 400 employees, $1 trillion worth of trading volume.
Head of NASDAQ.
Yeah, I mean, the reputation of the people. I mean, you didn't know who was on the board of directors. You didn't know. That was not in the sales brochures that went out there.
We had a lady in there that was married to a well-known doctor. She had a lot of money, lived high fat on the land down in Florida. He became ill and he was operated on, and she sued for malpractice when he died. Her father said to her, give all the money to Madoff and it's going to be safe. How much money did she give out in the malpractice suit?
Yeah, I mean, she got $3.5 million from Bernard Madoff, or from the lawsuit, turned it all over to Bernard Madoff in 2007, and it was all gone. But the point I guess
she lost everything,
the
her
point I'm
home,
making to
everything.
you is Bernard Madoff Investment Securities was painting a picture of a massive firm with huge trading volume that had 3 arms: market maker, proprietary trading, investment advisory, that was as big as anything out there. You didn't know that the board of directors was only family members. You didn't know that. And you wouldn't necessarily, you looked at things like the track record and the history and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was superb.
Yeah. Do you remember when he was arrested and he said, I did it all alone?
Sure,
Do you
I was
remember that?
in the courtroom.
Oh.
I was in the courtroom when he did
Yeah,
that.
we were in Washington when that happened.
Yeah, New York.
Isn't
New
he
York.
offering to tell more now? Last week he was on TV or something,
No.
just after the class, and he was offering
It's
to...
not offering to identify the banks, though. He refused to do that.
He said more people should have known about this, and isn't he willing to give a little bit more information?
I got the call from the New York Post talking about this. Why do you think Bernie did it? And Bernie Madoff is a megalomaniac
Yeah.
who has an inflated perception of himself, and from what I've read in prison, when this thing kind of dies down, he does what he can to pump it back up.
Okay.
They had a prisoner who got out that was quoted on CNBC for one of their series, who said, Bernie told me all this stuff. And I frankly think to some degree Bernie may have been attempting to help his friends at the Mets by saying they didn't know anything. That wouldn't be outrageous for him to do that. And I think he's kind of bored and doesn't have much else to do. And he grants an interview to a reporter who's writing a book. Why would he do something like that? Why would he do that? It's hard to
Made
get
all the
inside
television
mind.
stations last week over that.
Yeah.
He got publicity. Everybody woke him up from the dead.
Yeah, I mean, Bernie Madoff is back in the news, and he apparently spends a lot of his time looking for information about himself. The fact that he is caught up in himself and his own ego is not at all surprising. I can't imagine why he would grant that interview to Diane Henriquez. I really can't.
He had to tell people how unfair everyone is because of what happened to Mark in that article. That was,
Yeah.
Isn't it just as hard to imagine why he didn't take more for himself?
Yeah, that's
I mentioned that. You know, why didn't he take the lion's share for himself? He didn't. I mean, the bulk of the money went to other people. I'm not saying he lived poorly. He certainly did not.
Well, the question is he a fall guy? You know, did somebody have something on him where they extorted him? Now, Bernie, I will do this if you can treat me right. These special investors that got this 300, 400% per year, they may be blackmailing him and just used him as a hand puppet.
We'll never know that. Yeah, anything's possible, but the fact that Bernie keeps shooting his mouth off in prison just tells me that he was so caught up in being the guy.
Yeah.
The guy.
Well, you
And-
look at Ken Lay, the CEO, chairman of Enron. I met him a couple of times, but he was just a meek, modest guy, and he had this whole colossal under him. And you can't believe that. And what happens is, I think that he was just a patsy, really, truly. He didn't understand these meat eaters that he had in his organization. That he was like herding cats. And, these guys are so, they're so caught up in keeping their crown on their head that they don't understand that they're being consumed by the guys underneath them.
Yeah,
And,
to say we'll never know.
What do you think are the odds of other people being prosecuted like Ruth and the other people you listed?
Low.
Right?
Low. Yeah, the U.S. Attorney's Office has pretty much said that it is unlikely that any family members with the name Madoff will be prosecuted. Low. The U.S. Attorney's Office, and I've talked to some of their people a few times, these investigations take years, and it depends on where the path takes you. For instance, the fact that Di Pasquale is apparently shooting his mouth off. Annette Buonagino is keeping quiet. Joanne Krupe is pretty much keeping quiet. Those two, for the most part, are really upset because their assets have been seized and they can't pay their attorneys. That's their primary concern right now.
Should have taken care of that
But
early.
once some of these people are indicted and perhaps can cut deals and open up, are they still not going to go after the Madoffs personally?
Well, everything I've been able to get my hands on says no. Of course, that could change based on what they tell them. But if you have someone like a Joanne Krupe or an Annette Buonagino or a Frank Di Pasquale tell you something, and you're going to put them on a witness stand to put someone in jail, what do you think the defense attorney is going to do to those witnesses? I mean, if you don't have something written down as proof that they did it, I mean, they're going to lose their money. They're being sued for every penny they're worth. They'll be litigated against for the remainder of their lives, more than likely. But in terms of jail sentences, I don't think so.
But if
I
you
don't
put in
think so.
700,000 and you take out 18 million, what else do you have to prove?
I agree with you. I agree with you. When I got those numbers I showed to you, that we'll go through in much more detail next week. When I looked at those numbers, I was flat astonished. How do you like this? You put in nothing and you take out 15 billion. And who that was?
The son.
Crazy.
The IRS.
The IRS.
That was the IRS. Put in nothing and took out 15 billion. Damn, boy, they did great. Biggest single winner.
Yeah.
All the states put in 0. Take out about 5 billion.
Well,
Not bad?
has anybody estimated the total IRS take from Madoff?
That's what I just did.
But
15 billion. How do they get it?
did you say B or?
Billion. 15 billion.
Million, okay.
You had 20 billion in. You had 65 billion in terms of reported value. So you're looking at something in the range of about $40 billion worth of profits. 1099s at 30%.
Term.
Short term.
That's right.
Short term. Yep.
The pain.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all.
You ruined our lunch.
Don't forget to leave your questionnaires for me. So what do you think? Is this class different?
Oh, it's wonderful. Get a bomb shelter.
I wanted to get.
We have to put one less chair back here.
Yeah, but I'll do, I don't have them with me. I'll
Oh,
bring them
okay.
in. But I have some copies left. So I'll make sure, I'll make a point of bringing those in for next week.
Okay, great, thank you.
Well, I can exit this way, yeah, but they'll do. I brought a little book in for you. It's called When Genius
Well, the
Fails.
first story in that book really got me because when I first heard about it on the news, I thought it was all, people who had lots of money, they just lost
You seen this
their
one?
money.
This is
No,
$100 billion topple.
No, it doesn't impact.
I don't think any of us are safe. I don't think
No, but, it's like in the Middle Ages when somebody would say, "Come